Hey, how's it going? I'm Jeff Chapman, and this is my first Photoshop tutorial. And in this video, I'll be giving you a little bit of a glimpse inside the process of what exactly goes into making one of my photo manipulations. Now, this isn't going to be like a Photoshop 101 type video. You're going to need a basic general understanding of the program in order to follow along. And before I begin, I just want to let you know that the techniques you're going to see me be using aren't necessarily like the best techniques or like the quickest techniques. They're just the techniques that I personally use. So this isn't meant to be like a Photoshop end all be all, do this, don't do that tutorial. This is just how I work for anyone who's interested. So in case we haven't already guessed from the title and from looking at this picture, we're going to be doing some Wonder Woman fan art. And what you're looking at here is just kind of a very rough, pasted together from low-res images, just like a sketch. It's kind of like a blueprint of what my final image is going to look like. It's just to help me kind of figure out the layout and things like that. And this also helps me check and see if all my source photos are going to actually work together. And by work together, I mean that anatomy is looking good. You know, when you're pasting together a body from, several different body parts, you don't want an arm or a leg to be at some weird unnatural angle. And also lighting. Lighting is very important. You need your lighting to be pretty consistent overall. Again, when you're pasting together several different images from several different source photos, you want to make sure they all have basically the same lighting. That's very important. So my lighting is good, my anatomy is good, I like my overall layout, so I think I'm ready to begin. Now these are my stock photos that I'm going to use for the body, and I'll just give you briefly go through them here. I'm going to take the arms and the shoulders and kind of the upper torso from this image. I'm going to take the legs from this picture. Going to take the head from this picture. Going to take the hair and some of the shoulder from this picture. And I'm going to take some of the shoulders, some of the arms and the neck and the chest from this picture. But we're going to start with this one here. So I'm just going to drag it into Photoshop. And I'm just going to clip out the parts I need. And I'm going to use the pen tool for that. So I'm going to create a new path. So I'm just going to start clipping this out. And this is going to be heavily edited, obviously. I'm not going to sit here and make you watch every single little anchor point I'm doing. I'm sure you guys don't want to see every single little step like this. So I finished up my path here, but I don't want to make my selection just yet, because if you think about Wonder Woman's costume, she doesn't have any straps on her top. However, this woman has straps, so we want to get rid of these straps on this leotard thing she's wearing. And how we're going to do that is we're just going to paint them out with the brush. And I'm just going to create a new layer. Just going to go to my brush, and I'm just going to take a sample from the skin around it. I'm going to start off with a higher opacity around like 68 and just loosely kind of chunk in a color. I'm just going to loosely cover them up. Maybe do a higher opacity. Turn up my flow. And you can also just go to hit B on the keyboard for brush and I for eyedropper. They'll kind of streamline the process. You don't got to keep going up to the toolbar. Okay, now that I have the skin just very roughly kind of chunked in, I'm gonna turn down my opacity and make my brush size bigger, and I'm gonna start blending it more. I'm gonna start blending the area I painted in with her natural skin. And just going over them with really light opacities is kind of the key to make sure everything blends. Oh, I had it at 1%. That is way too low. You don't want to have it at 1%. That is way too low. You want to keep it as probably, 10 or 12, around that area, as the lightest. And again, you can just hit B and I to go back and forth the brush. B for brush, I for eyedropper. I have a bad habit of not doing that and just going to the toolbar. I try to hit B and I, but it's just old habits die hard. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. We got rid of the straps, we painted over them. The only problem is when you zoom in on this, it's very easy to tell the difference between the part I painted over and her actual skin. That's because her skin has texture on it, and the stuff I painted is just smooth like porcelain, like a doll. So we need to take some of the skin texture from her body and overlay it over the parts I painted in so it all blends together. And we're going to do that by just taking a selection of skin right here from her chest, and I'm just gonna copy and paste it. I'm gonna put that layer above my painted area. I'm gonna desaturate that. I'm gonna go to filter, where is it? Filter high pass, and set it at about 9, and go to overlay. Oop, that's soft light, overlay. And as you can see, what that does, it overlays our skin texture over our painted area. So anything we put this layer over is going to have skin texture. And the problem is we don't want to overlay skin texture on skin texture because then it's just going to look extra rough. So we only want our skin texture over the area we painted. So we're just going to make a clipping mask on that layer so it's only over the painted area. Then I'm just going to take the clone stamp and I'm just going to clone stamp that texture over the rest of the painted area. And I'm going to duplicate that layer and reverse it. Oop. Horizontally. Put it over here. And again, just going to clone stamp that a little bit just so we can get that texture all over the place. All right, there we go. We have our texture over our painted areas, and it looks pretty consistent. It looks just like skin. So I'm just going to go to my paths and go to make selection. So I'm just going to copy that. Going to make a new document. Just going to title it Wonder Woman. Very clever, huh? Going to work with, make it 12 inches wide by 18 inches high by 300 DPI. That's just kind of the standard size I work with. If I want to go back later and make a different size, I can adjust it, but that's a good standard size to start off with. So I'm just going to paste it in. And I'm going to label it upper torso. And I'm going to change my background color here. I don't like working on white, so I'm just going to go pick kind of a grayish blue kind of color, just a neutral color. Just fill that. Make that a little bigger. Okay, so I'm going to move on to my next stock photo. And that is this one up here. I'm going to drag in the Photoshop. And I'm going to clip it out again with a pen tool. Okay, we got our path all done, so I'm just gonna go make my selection. Command C. And I'm gonna paste this in. I'm gonna rescale it so it's generally the same size as this one. That's pretty good. Now what I want to do, I want to kind of combine these two images. There are some elements from each that I want to show through. So I'm going to overlay this top torso piece on the other torso piece, and I'm going to put a mask on it so I get some elements from one and some elements from the other. But before I do that, I need to take this top torso, and that reminds me, I'm going to label this top upper torso. Torso. There we go. And I'm gonna warp it so it fits right over the one underneath it. So all the kind of body points line up. I'm gonna start by doing that by just going to warp. And I'm just gonna kind of stretch it so it fits. It's going to help if I just turn down the opacity a little bit. That way I can kind of see what I'm trying to get to match. Okay. Now that's about as much as I can do with the warp tool. So now I got to go into liquify, filter liquify. And I'm going to zoom in. Going to go to show backdrop, and I'm going to go to upper torso. And I'm going to turn down the opacity a little bit, just so I can see what's behind it. And now I'm going to use the liquify tool to kind of warp this top picture to the same proportions of the bottom picture. I'm going to start off with a big brush and to get kind of the major shapes, and then I'm going to move on to a smaller brush. And I'm going to just turn down the opacity a little bit just so we can kind of see how this is looking, how this is all lining up. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to hit OK. Cool. Although I see that her breasts are a little wonky, so I'm going to fix those. It was hard to see that when I had the opacity turned down. I'm sorry, Wonder Woman. I'll fix your boobs. Okay. Now, I can kind of toggle this on and off. You can see that it's all lining up pretty damn good. The only problem is the lighting is a little off. It's a little more lighter and saturated here, and it's a little more desaturated and darker here. So I'm gonna lighten this top image up a little bit. And I'm gonna go to levels, and I'm just gonna bring this over a little bit, bring the darker over, just to kind of lighten that up just a bit. Let's see how that looks. Okay, at this point I'm gonna mask off this upper torso layer, create clipping masks. That way it doesn't bleed over the edge of the first upper torso layer. Okay, now I'm just gonna create a clipping mask on this upper torso area. And I'm gonna start painting in with black so I get the body underneath to show more. Let me go with a lighter opacity. Just slowly erasing that top torso layer until I get a good balance between both. Okay, so now I think we made a good combination of both torsos. I masked off what I wanted to show through from the bottom, and I kept what I liked on the top. So now we can move on to adding in the head. Just gonna go back to my stock photos. Go to my head. Or her head, that's not my head. And I'm just gonna very roughly kind of cut her out. At this point, I'm not going to worry about getting, a nice edge to her hair. This is going to be a pretty rough mask. Going to go to path. Let's make selection. Just do 0.5 again. Go paste. And I'm just going to label this head. That's not right. Head. And I'm gonna scale this down a bit. I'm gonna just reflect it so my lighting matches. Because you see on my torso, I have the lighting coming in from the left, I have the shadows on the right, and I have this kind of highlight on the very far right. And on the head, I got my lighting coming in from the left, shadows over here, and I got a little bit of this kind of a highlight on the edge. So it all matches up. Just gonna feather this edge. Now I'm gonna need to adjust some colors on my head to get it to match. I'm just gonna go to levels. Darken that up a little bit. A little too dark. Hue saturation. And this is kind of trial and error. There's no exact formula I use to matching skin tones. It's a lot of just, try a little bit of this, try a little bit of that, whatever works. My darks are a little too dark, so I'm going to go to my reds and turn down the blacks. Turn up some yellows a little bit. Again, this is a lot of trial and error. Okay, so I think I have the skin on the head matching the skin on the torso pretty closely. I might go in and tweak it a little bit later, but for now I think we're doing good. So I'm actually going to change her eye colors. I'm going to give her the classic Wonder Woman blue eyes. And for that I'm just going to make a path. I use paths for almost everything. Copy and paste them. Label that blue eyes. I'm going to go to levels and just drag this over, lighten them up a bit. Let's try color overlay. Let's try doing like a very subtle blue. Try maybe soft light. color. And I'm just going to erase this little bit of blue showing up here. Perfect. And I'm going to actually tone down her lipstick a little bit. So I'm just going to make a path around her lips. Make a selection. Copy paste. Going to label it lips. And to make her lips a little more of a natural skin tone, I'm just going to go to selective color. And turn down the magentas a little bit. Maybe turn down the blacks. I think it's pretty good. Actually, I gotta... And I think that's pretty good. Yeah, that's more of a natural color, not so bright. So I'm gonna move on to another stock photo. Go to preview. I'm gonna move on to this one. And I'm going to take out the hair overlapping the shoulders here. So I'm just going to make a really rough selection of hair. I'm going to take about that. Going to take our hair from our construction site mummy. I'm not sure exactly what she's wearing. She's wearing caution tape, like a mummy dress. I don't. There's some weird stock photos. I've come across some really weird stock photography, let me tell you. Okay, I'm gonna paste this in here. And I'm gonna reflect that because I want my shadow on that side. And again, I'm just going to adjust some of the colors. It's going to change your skin tones. So I'm going to I'm going to start off with hue saturation. Just slide the bar a little closer to the reds. So with this picture, I'm going to use the way the hair overlaps the shoulders here and use that over these shoulders. And so I'm just going to go to warp and get this to line up a little bit better. Just going to darken up the skin on this image because it's a little too light. Gonna go to hue saturation, make it a little more red. It's too red. Gonna put a mask on that. And I'm just gonna basically mask off the skin. Just going to warp this a little bit again. And I'm going to mask off the hair up here because I don't think I'll need this. Just going to mask that off. And I actually think I'm going to just get rid of this hair section over here. I think I might just keep this part of the hair behind her shoulders, but I'm not sure. Still working out the kinks in the final design. Okay, so it's coming together pretty good. I'm just going to tweak the colors of the head a little bit more. They're still a little bit too yellow. There, I think that's pretty close. I'm actually going to take this original neck on the original model. I'm going to feather it out a little bit. I'm going to paste it over the head, just so it blends a little better. Turn down the opacity so I can line it up. I'm just going to match up the chins. And I'm just going to erase out so it feathers nicely. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so I still need to do a little more work with the hair and how the hair interacts with the shoulders, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to move on right now. I'm going to move on to the legs. So I'm going to go to my stock photo of the legs, and there we are. Bring in the Photoshop. Once again, go to the pen tool. And I think that's enough. I'm not going to have too much of the legs showing on the final picture. It's going to end somewhere around the knees. Going to make sure we get this little bit between the legs. Going to make our selection about 0.5. Paste it in. I think I'm gonna rotate that actually. Yeah. And make sure to label it legs. I'm gonna rotate this whole thing just so it's not straight up and down. Just gonna rotate the head a little bit. Just gonna darken this leg up a little more. And lighten this a little more. Gonna go to my levels, lighten it up a bit. And I'm gonna make a new layer over here. I'm just gonna paint in this lighter color over the dark over here. And I'm gonna create a clipping mask. Go to lighten. Just to lighten up that darker a little bit. These legs are taking a little more tweaking than I like to do. Just unfortunately the lighting on them didn't match as well as some of the other pictures I chose. And I'm gonna make everything a little bigger. And okay, I think that's a pretty good place to stop. We got most of our body done. We just need to finalize a little bit of the hair more. Need to add some more hair in the back. But other than that, our body will be done and we can move on to the costume. But that'll be it for this video. Thank you for watching and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.